Welcome back. Right. So Shedeur Sanders is working out in Miami, right? And we love to see it. We love to see it. But we have to put some things into perspective. Um, Not just a few short days ago, what did we hear? The unexpected. That Deshaun Watson was taking Shedeur Sanders under his wing. Yes, he's mentoring Dylan Gabriel and Shedeur Sanders, but he's taking Shedeur Sanders under his wing. That's the extra note, right? Um, so we go from that and people being surprised. I talked about it and I said, okay, I like it, right? It's a good thing because Deshaun Watson survived after asking for a trade. He survived what appears to be an attack on his character, right? And then he was reimbursed essentially every dime that he paid out in those settlements. He was reimbursed essentially every dime that he paid out to his lawyers, and he was reimbursed every dime that he had to pay to the NFL in a fine. So essentially, the NFL gave Deshaun Watson every dime back that essentially publicly, he had to pay. He was publicly humiliated, right? He was singled out. He was targeted. He asked for a trade, and people are questioning now, was that retaliation for Deshaun Watson asking for a trade? So Deshaun Watson essentially survived an attack as a black NFL quarterback. So what does he have to share with Shedeur Sanders? The wisdom, the tales of survival, how to survive an attack as a black NFL quarterback, the truth about the history of black NFL quarterbacks. And as 2025 was the historic year, the rise of the black quarterback, he has a lot of wisdom to share with Shedeur Sanders. So I see it as a positive, and apparently some other people see it as a threat. Because what happened next? Two things. One, it's reported that the front office is in dissension. They're not on the same page. And we talked about that a little bit last night. I'm like, now I wonder what this is about, right? Well-timed, perfectly placed conversation pointing out what we didn't know, that there's some internal there's some internal friction between Andrew Berry and between Kevin Stefanski. But then what else did we learn just yesterday? A reminder. Why was there a reminder that Shedeur Sanders is on the negotiating list for the Toronto Argonauts, a team that if the NFL chooses to release Shedeur from Cleveland and no other team picks him up, like no other team picked him up in the draft, he wasn't on the board, but he landed in Cleveland like Deshaun Watson, just mysteriously landed in Cleveland, right? Uh, that's his next move. And I'm like, okay, again, I like it, right? So the conversation about Andrew Berry and Kevin Stefanski not being on the same page comes down to Andrew Berry wants Arch Manning and Kevin Stefanski wants Dylan Gabriel. I said, oh, okay, so they want to play cat and mouse. They hear Deshaun Watson is what? Taking Shedeur Sanders under his wing. We hear Stefanski and Berry want to have a little back and forth about two quarterbacks. None of them name Shedeur Sanders. And then we hear Shedeur Sanders is on the negotiating list for the Toronto Argonauts. And I'm thinking to myself, I said, it's a lot to go through for an NFL team, right? To pre-draft with somebody, right? Reel them in as your number two quarterback. And then use the quarterback that was already seemingly retaliated against as the scapegoat as to why you're going to drop him like a bad habit. And then to say when you got him for $4 million, you're not happy. And then to act like he not on your roster, that he not going to make the team. You don't give him first team reps. He was drafted late. He can't pick his own jersey number, but he can compete for the number one spot, but not really. Only in conversation. He doesn't get first team reps, or he gets them behind closed doors so the public can't see he's their guy. See, the public matters. Because why am I putting all of this out here in the public? Because I need to justify waiving Shedeur Sanders. I need to justify releasing Shedeur Sanders from the NFL. See, there's all these conversations. Oh, we see Shedeur get ready for the starting job. What starting job? Y'all gonna sit up and not be honest about what they doing to Shedeur? The same thing they did to him in the draft? Then go ahead on and throw Deshaun Watson into the conversation too. And what they did to him. And then what you begin to see when you talk about RG3, Marlon Briscoe, Gilliam, Doug Williams is a pattern of abuse toward black NFL quarterbacks. And we see it with Shedeur at a time where black quarterbacks are on the rise, once again, becoming the majority of the starters. That's why we're here today having this conversation. Because Shedeur Sanders is being held back. But then there's another play happening at the same time. And a lot of people don't see it coming together. And it involves Shiloh. Because now Tampa realizes that Shiloh has an uphill climb, not because of his performance. He's good there. But because there's not enough space for him. All of a sudden, even though Shiloh is number 4 on the depth chart, but suddenly there's 4 other players in front of him. So it seems like Shedeur and Shiloh could both be on the outs. And if they both go to Canada, there's a lot of people going too. See, the play is to remind y'all, this is not about black players. This is not about black quarterbacks. This is not about the NFL holding back Shedeur Sanders from QB1. This is not about what they did to Deshaun, how Caleb Williams was excessively sacked. It's not about that. It's about Coach Prime. Although every last one of Coach Prime players got associated with an NFL team. And there's more to come. With Cleveland talking about who as a first round pick? Number 77, Jordan Seaton. So they want to talk about Jordan Seaton. They want to talk about Archie Manning. What does that look like? What does it look like? It makes it look like we're just not interested in Shedeur. Why not? It's not because he got speeding tickets, because, we're going to have to talk about wrestling until the sun and the cows come home. Maybe we need to throw some owners in there with their massage behavior too. Because how is it that only Deshaun Watson is held up in front of us about a massage issue when there were other people, including owners? He's a black NFL quarterback. So if Shedeur Sanders goes to Canada, I'm done with the NFL. What about y'all? Because honestly, what else is there to do? Because we know they clearly have an issue with the majority of starting quarterbacks being black, right? That's why Cam Ward is competing for his spot when it's an inherent spot. Why would a team go and draft a first overall pick and make him compete with the guy that failed? Because he's black, and this is that year. The historic rise of black quarterbacks. Cam is number 16. Shedeur is number 17. Milroe is number 18. Not only were they the top quarterbacks in this class, they said this class was weak. It's definitely not weak by quarterbacks. Not when you have a Lamar Jackson, Michael Vick comp. The dual threat is supposed to be the modern quarterback, right? So why is Cam Ward a dual threat competing? Number 1 quarterback overall, guaranteed $48 million, competing with the guy that failed. Because the guy that failed is white. They didn't want Cam to be their quarterback. Cam was taking a spot from a white quarterback and making it available and being held by a black quarterback. Now they're gonna be people that tell you, oh, this isn't about race because they drafted Cam. Yup, look at how they're treating him. Look at how they're treating Cam. He has to compete. That means he's being devalued. You're not as good as they say, so we're gonna make you compete with the white guy that failed last year. And then there's Shedeur. They doing everything that I told you they was gonna do. They was gonna jump all kind of hurdles and climb all kind of ladders just to get away from the situation. Jump through hurdles to hold them back. Climb up all kind of ladders that go into infinity so you don't see what they're truly doing. And now, as we turn the corner, we've already turned that corner and we on the straightaway to the training camp and the little tidbits put out by the media. How do you think the media know that Kevin Stefanski and Andrew Berry are at odds about Arch Manning and Dylan Gabriel? That's convenient. Conveniently placed when Deshaun Watson is taking Shedeur under his wing. I told y'all they didn't want them talking. I told you somebody is on the move. And if no other team could draft Shedeur, is there really another team that could trade for him if the NFL puts him on waivers? See, all of this is supposed to humiliate and hurt Shedeur, but I doubt that it is. The Argonauts have just begun their season. He can leave the NFL, go play in Canada, just like Warren Moon did. But will he be the only one? No. There are 39 players, rookies, who have not signed their contracts. They might go too. And that's what needs to happen. You know, people talk about the players have to stand up for themselves. This is true. And we see it. I commend the rookies. The league isn't interested in resolving the issues with the contracts right now. There's no sense of urgency. There was no sense of urgency when it came to Travis. Travis, y'all know he had to go fishing with Coach Prime. But then now suddenly it's about Coach Prime. And there's two players that you could see coming into view. Coach Prime's sons, all of a sudden, there's no space. Why? Because he was influential in helping Travis get his contract? Shedeur not on the depth chart anyway, but Shiloh was. He was fourth on the depth chart. Now he got a tough hill climb. He already on the depth chart. Why he still climbing? Why the guy behind him? If it's already 4 plus Shiloh and Shiloh is number 4, why the guy behind him don't have an uphill climb? Why is it on Shiloh? So if the NFL fool around and cut the best quarterback that came out of this class, the most NFL ready quarterback, after they drafted him and humiliate him, and then they want to push him to Cleveland and they want to humiliate him some more, they're going to lose some fans. They're going to lose some fans. And not just me. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Hey, Shirley, how you doing? Hey, Tina, how you doing? Alonzo said, black athletes need their own leagues. I totally agree. Forget these cage dwellers who knock your shine. Right. And, you know, the interesting part about this situation is the black athletes who are choosing to sidestep the issue and not hold the NFL accountable. Right. Warren Moon went to Canada to escape exactly what happened to Shedeur Sanders. He didn't want to be devalued at a time when having a white quarterback was preferable. Well, this is deja vu because that's exactly where the NFL is. And you see how they stacking the deck coming out of college. Which is why this class, the 3 black quarterbacks in this class, out of 13 quarterbacks, only 3 were black. Guess how many going to be black next year? Coming out the top 5, top 10. 1. reducing the numbers of black quarterbacks because they are on the rise. 2025 was to be historic. Making Cam compete, playing keep away with QB1 with Shedeur in Cleveland, and hiding Miro on the depth chart. This is all happening simultaneously. And all Warren Moon, who went to Canada to escape the same type of being devalued, had to say about Shedeur was that he's a quarterback, not a cornerback. Well, my question to Mr. Warren Moon, respectfully, since you think Shedeur was acting like a cornerback and not a quarterback, did it work for you? Because you acted like a quarterback and they didn't want you either. That's the problem with the NFL. When people like Warren Moon, who actually had to go to Canada to be recognized by the NFL because the NFL said black players didn't have the mental capacity to lead teams. Because why? Black players and black people have lower cognitive functioning than whites. Warren Moon went to Canada to escape it and did. But when it came to Shedeur, you have to act like a quarterback and be humble. That's condescending. Did it work for Warren Moon? Hell no. So that meant he knows exactly what it's about. So why would he sit up there knowing he had to go to Canada? Why would he sit up there knowing he himself had to go to Canada? And say that what happened to Shedeur was because he's not a cornerback. The way you carry yourself matters. He carried himself in a fine manner and it did not help him at all. But he don't want to admit that. He'd rather, I guess, be looked favorably upon by the NFL. See, that's what they're doing with this whole with Shedeur. You don't hear no white people coming out other than the haters in the media. What white player have sat down and said what Warren Moon said? You don't see it. They're not going to do it. Just like Andrew Berry is being sent to stab Shedeur in the back. So is Warren Moon and Chris Carter. Warren Moon ought to be ashamed of himself, respectfully, because if anybody could have spoke on the racism he had to deal with, he should be able to see it in Shedeur, but now he don't see it. Suddenly he don't see it, but he saw it. When Kyler Murray, who was a part of that collusion case, and asked for a guaranteed contract, he got $230 million. Does that number sound familiar? Deshaun Watson. But Kyler didn't get his fully guaranteed like Deshaun. But guess what he did get? He got a stipulation in his contract that he has to study a certain amount of hours every day. Warren Moon said that was racist. The whole damn collusion case is racist. You notice there were no white quarterbacks in the collusion case. They were all black veteran quarterbacks. The NFL is proving, and it is documented, it has an issue with black NFL quarterbacks. So at a time where we are on the rise, it looks like Shedeur might have to actually go to Canada, like Warren Moon did, to be treated with respect, to be recognized as a talented athlete that can lead NFL teams. That's why Cam is competing with the guy that failed, because it's not about his talent. It's about his cognitive functioning as a black NFL quarterback, which is why Cam is competing with the guy that failed. Obviously, Cam's talent is better than the guy that failed. You drafted him because the guy failed. So what's the difference between the white quarterback that failed and the black quarterback that's number one overall coming out of college? What's the difference? The perception that the NFL has about black people and black NFL players, quarterbacks in particular. The race Norman era is not over in the NFL. Shame on Warren Moon for seeing the racism in the collusion case with Kyler Murray, but he don't see it with Shedeur, and that's the exact reason that he went to Canada. That's what's wrong with the NFL. People like Warren Moon who want to selectively call out the NFL. He sees the racism with Kyler Murray, but he don't see it with Shedeur in the draft. Well, isn't that why you went to Canada, Mr. Warren Moon? To escape being devalued like we see Shedeur being done? How you don't see it? That's the problem with the NFL. And he not the only one. Chris Carter act like he didn't know no quarterbacks. Like he got an axe to grind. So does Warren Moon have an axe to grind with Coach Prime too? I guess the prank, the public humiliation stunt, that was Shedeur Sanders' fault too. Hi, Mr. Warren Moon. That's what you call selective accountability. The whole damn collusion case was racist because all the quarterbacks that were negotiated at the time were black. Just like the 3 black quarterbacks coming into the NFL. But he can't see it in the draft. Maybe because he didn't go through the damn draft because he went to Canada to avoid being treated like Shedeur. I guess Shedeur being called entitled and defamed was his fault too, Warren Moon. I guess Shedeur Sanders being taken off the draft board was his fault because they said he was entitled, which is subjective. It has nothing to do with his talent and was not proven. But he didn't speak to that. Just like Chris Carter, these old heads in the NFL have selective accountability. Chris Carter has absolutely no accountability for the NFL. I guess he feels like maybe paying for his gold jacket makes him feel accepted. Between Warren Moon and Chris Carter, they both know the truth. And if they both have an axe to grind with Coach Prime, then they need to call him and deal with it personally and not take it out on his son. And that message goes for the NFL too. This is about the rise of black NFL quarterbacks in 2025. Prove me wrong. The problem with the NFL is too many people sidestepping accountability. If you could call it out about the collusion case with Kyler Murray, then you damn sure saw it in the draft. The exact reason Warren Moon went to Canada, which is why we said Shedeur should have went to Canada. And if they release Shedeur, he can go to Canada and we going too. That's what the NFL is not ready for. They don't want black NFL quarterbacks to start, then okay. Then they can't have people who think that that's racist and it's ugly, it's despicable as fans. If you're not a quarterback, they're not worried about it. All of this is going to all come together somewhere. Hockey just drafted 3 black players. NASCAR has at least 2 or 3 black drivers. And several more people, including a former NFL player in pit crew. Things are changing everywhere but the NFL. The WNBA want to play the same game, but they losing. They can't even keep Caitlin Clark healthy enough to put her in front of nobody else. The Indiana Fever just won the Commissioner's Cup with Caitlin in street clothes. Natasha Howard is being celebrated. Erica Mitchell got her flowers in the last game. You see what course correction looks like? It ain't nothing you can control. And the NFL is next. It's coming. The NFL is due for a hard course correction. Trying to hold back black NFL quarterbacks. If you're not going to hold the NFL accountable and you are part of the NFL, then just shut up. Don't say anything. If you don't want to call it out like it is, like the rookies are doing and demanding fairness, then just shut the hell up. I'm proud of the rookies. We don't know how the situation going to end, but I see they would rather be treated fairly than sign up to be discriminated against. The NFL is due for a hard course correction. And since people like Warren Moon, who actually experienced the racism, can sit up and talk about his racism, can call it out with Kyler Murray, he don't see it when it comes to Shedeur in the draft. What the hell is his angle? That makes people question his reputation. Because he's saying Shedeur acted like a cornerback. Well, guess what? Warren Moon himself acted like a quarterback, and NFL didn't want him for the same damn reason they don't want Shedeur. Because he's a black quarterback. They don't want black quarterbacks leading now. The NFL does not want quarterbacks like Shedeur Sanders now. Quarterbacks was plural. We don't want that kind of quarterback. But then they drafted 2 white pocket passes. I mean, what else do you need to understand that Cam Ward is competing because the guy that failed is white? And they'd rather have the guy that failed because he's white. What else do you need to see that the NFL don't want quarterbacks like Shedeur Sanders, plural, and they passed up Jalen Milroe, who's a dual threat, Mr. Dual Threat, and Shedeur Sanders, who they say is a pocket passer, because we clearly see his mobility. And instead of those two black QBs, in their place, they drafted two white ones. So Cam, 16, competing against a white QB that failed. Shedeur, 17, Milroe, 18 in the draft. Well, guess who became 17 and 18 instead of Milroe and Shedeur? Yup, Jackson Dart is now 17 for white quarterbacks. And Tyler Shaw is 18. Keeping the majority of the starting quarterbacks white. Now, black quarterbacks don't wake up every day and think about, oh, we're going to become the majority today. But the damn NFL does. In fact, they have stats on how many times it changed and when it started. And they could see the pattern landing in 2025. The NFL is due for a hard course correction that they cannot control. Just like the WNBA. They thought they was going to coast into this season and ride on the back of Caitlin Clark again, and she can't stay healthy for shit. So Natasha Howard and Erica Mitchell, the people that deserve their flowers, are getting them. We can't help but see them because somebody got to fucking play. The NFL is due for the same kind of course correction. And I think there are people like Coach Prime that want Shedeur to hold on. In other words, God opened the door. Stay there. Don't let them break you. Like Russell Wilson say, they can't break me until God closes that door. I think that's what he wants him to do. But every move that Shedeur makes is going to have some negativity. And the one move that they did not expect was for a black veteran. You listen to Warren Moon call out racism in the collusion case with Kyler Murray, but he don't see nothing but Shedeur acting like a cornerback, as if it helped him to act like a quarterback when he decided to go to Canada. That's the problem. That's the mentality they want right there. Oh, these black guys, they're not going to hold us accountable because they don't stick together. Are they lying? To come down on Shedeur Sanders and talk about him acting like a cornerback, but you didn't mention the connection to Ole Miss, to the front office in the New York Giants, and the discrimination. You didn't talk about the public humiliation of being taken off the board. Hell, they didn't even have to draft Shedeur. You didn't talk about how they drafted him with the sole purpose of humiliating him. Is that why Shiloh's in Tampa? Because he has an uphill climb, not due to his performance, but he don't have space because it'll be humiliating when he gets cut? Is that why when Shedeur got eventually sent to a team, because he clearly was going to be Mr. Irrelevant, the last pick in the draft, or undrafted free agent? Because it's humiliating. So now they want to play games with him. He not even on the depth chart. They're calling him a 4th-string QB. They're not giving him first team reps publicly. They're doing everything they can to harass him, hold him back, including the media, including Mary Cabot, harassing him or her microaggressions. So much so that they moved her the hell out the way and put in Daniel Oyefuse so they're not totally without a conscience. They understand that there are consequences for discrimination. But yet they persist. Because their goal is to continue to humiliate Shedeur. And he did nothing. What the hell did Miro do to deserve being labeled as a project? The second best quarterback out the SEC who went to Alabama. Have damn near the identical, close to it, QBR rating as the first QB to leave out the SEC that he was better than. Miro went through this in college, so he know what to do in Seattle. Shedeur went through it in college when people believed it was for a different reason. It's the same reason. And it's not Coach Prime. I asked y'all, I said to Mr. Lamar Jackson, what did I say? Mr. Lamar Jackson needs to ask himself if the Baltimore Ravens want to win a Super Bowl with him. Yeah, they want to win one as a team. The owners don't care. They get paid either way. The Super Bowl win is for the players. And yet Baltimore can't seem, with all the talent they keep going to get, to win a Super Bowl. And Lamar Jackson gets trashed for it, but it's crickets when Josh Allen can't win the big game. And Josh Allen was the second best quarterback in the league, and he won MVP after the media changed his votes. Likely the same media that snubbed Angel Reese. There are people that can see that Angel Reese and Shedeur Sanders are on the same path, with the leagues that they are in respectively holding them back. And why is that? Because the WNBA does not want the face of its league to be black. And neither does the NFL. To understand that even if Shedeur's last name was not Sanders, that he will be damn good and we will be talking about him. Now you put Sanders on his jersey and then everybody leans in. They don't want that. They want you to lean in for Josh Allen. That's why he got the MVP. That's why he keep popping up on some damn TV commercial. He's the second best quarterback. Explain it. And then people changing their votes. That's cheating. But they okay with discrimination. They're okay with cheating. They're okay with preference. I prefer Josh Allen to be MVP. I don't want it to be Lamar Jackson no more. They won't let the game in the sport of football play out competitively like it's supposed to, and the best rise to the top. Oh, they don't want to do that in 2025 and going forward. Nope, I want it to be Josh Allen the MVP. I want the most games to go to the Kansas City Chiefs, the Dallas Cowboys, even though they ain't won shit, and the Buffalo Bills, where Josh Allen is, because that's what I prefer. The NFL owes Pat Mahomes $450 million. Dak has the highest contract per year right now. That explains 1 and 2. So is his wife. Not Dak and not Pat Mahomes. Then there's Josh Allen. Who knows he's the number 2 quarterback? Who knows votes were changed? Y'all waiting for him to speak up and say, you know what? This is not my trophy. This is Lamar Jackson's. Y'all wait for him to do what Vince Young did? What did Vince Young tell the Heisman, not the Heisman committee, but what was that called? That was the Heisman. I think that was his Heisman. That Reggie Bush won. Then they took it from Reggie Bush and wanted to give it to who? Vince Young. He said, that's Reggie Bush trophy. Y'all waiting on Josh Allen to say this Lamar Jackson MVP? So they done got away with cheating. They done got away with preference over talent and the MVP level. And they repeated it in the damn draft. They repeated it with who you see on TV, the primetime games. The loser of the Super Bowl has the most primetime games. So Shedeur going to Canada, in my opinion, is the best thing for him. Because what people don't understand is, yes, he can stay down, but he got to work really hard on his mental so they don't break him. Russ survived, but he's still fighting in New York because he's supposed to be the starting quarterback. Why? Because they want rookies to sit behind veterans, except for when the veteran is black. And it's Russell Wilson, who was a part of the collusion case, who they robbed of $81 million in guarantees. Shedeur going to Canada, in my opinion, if God opened that door, it's for his own good. And we going with him. Everybody coming out behind Shedeur want their chance at the NFL. What NFL are you looking at? The one that discriminates against black quarterbacks? Why would you want to be a part of that? Your money not even guaranteed. It's 39 rookies fighting for theirs because they gave it out to two people in the first round that are also associated with Deshaun Watson's teams. So they're not doing what needs to be done on behalf of the players. They're being denied guaranteed contracts based on false logic of frequency of injuries when that goes to the basketball and they have guaranteed contracts. So what are you rushing to get here for? When you see Shedeur probably has to go to Canada just like Warren Moon did for the exact same reason, to avoid being devalued. Shedeur is already being devalued. To put a stop to it. And if they release Shiloh, I'm sure he's going to. And they should. Take that Sanders name, go to Canada with it, and we coming too. And the Prime effect gonna pop up in Canada. And to me, that should be a gateway for Coach Prime to start his own league. Primetime pro football. And then watch what happens. It'll be just like unrivaled basketball, but for football. A place where players can go and be respected. So yeah, if Shedeur has to go to Canada because the NFL released him or put him on the practice squad, I'm done with the NFL. Because what they can do is put him on waivers. But hey, if you release me, I'm gone. I'm gone. But keeping him and having him on the bench, is that a better solution? No. So people that say he get ready for the starting job, it must be in Canada. Because right now they just wasted his time. It was not a coincidence that an article is shared that Stefanski and Berry are arguing over Arch Manning. Do y'all see Arch Manning going to Cleveland? Hell no. Arguing over Arch Manning and Dylan Gabriel. In other words, that's their future. Then keep it. See, sometimes you got to give people what they want. Because what they don't want greatness. They want whiteness. Let them have it. Go start your own league. And then you won't be out here tripping over yourself with selective accountability because you're too afraid that they discriminated against Shedeur the same way they discriminated against Warren Moon, which is why he went to Canada. So that tells you we right back where you started when it comes to black quarterbacks. And the black guys like Chris Carter and Mr. Warren Moon are not doing black quarterbacks any service by not holding the NFL accountable or selectively holding the NFL accountable. They're not doing any service to any of these black quarterbacks by telling them to step and fetch it so they could be selected, because that's what they're doing. Oh, you acted like a cornerback. Well, you acted like a quarterback, Warren Moon. It didn't help you. Chris Carter's reputation is trash. He has no credibility. He's seen as an old hater who don't want the young generation that's making money in college to come into the NFL and do better than him. He didn't do himself any favors by choosing to step and fetch it himself. But see, that's what they want the younger generation to do, because that's what they chose to do. But Warren Moon, I applaud him for going to Canada. I applaud him for calling out what is happening to Kyler Murray, because I told y'all it was something happening to him and we just didn't know what it was. The 3 quarterbacks associated with the collusion case have all faced retaliation. Lamar Jackson subbed for the 3rd time, not just the MVP, but the 3rd time in the NFL. Russell Wilson, you see how it went in Denver. You see what's going on in New York. You see they forced him out of Pittsburgh after letting him get to where? The playoffs. They didn't even want that. They just didn't want him to be QB1 because that's what he is. So they're trying to deny them or make their lives harder. And I told y'all, we rarely see or hear about Kyler Murray, and then here it is. We hear it. They put a clause that he has to study X amount of hours a day. Sounds like retaliation because he was a part of the collusion case. Who gonna do something about that? not the players, because what did the NFL Players Association show you? That they collude with the owners. So the players have no recourse. And now they don't have guys like Chris Carter and Warren Moon who went before them to hold the NFL accountable for the very same things they experienced or saw their quarterback friends experience. No. So they don't have that support either. All they got is the rookies. All they have is the rookies. And we're going to have to see how that play out. And they have Shedeur too. Because people applaud Shedeur for also, like Deshaun Watson, surviving in attack because he's an black NFL quarterback. But we're going to have to wait and see what happens with the rookies who are holding the NFL accountable or attempting to. I applaud them. And we're going to have to wait and see what happens to Shedeur and Shiloh. Miro know how to survive this because he went through it at Alabama. And that should be a lesson for the next black quarterback thinking about Alabama. Don't. There's 3 that you had to learn from. So, yep, if Shedeur goes to Canada, I'm going to. I'm done with the NFL. Love the guys. They want to say, cool. Hell no, I'm not supporting it. Hell no. Because you know exactly what it is. These other guys, they in their contracts. They can't just get walk and leave. But that's a lesson for them too. Just like the guys coming behind Shedeur. You can come on in here if you want to. But you better understand the environment that you're coming into. And be willing to be held back or be the chosen one or not be the chosen one. And then you end up bitter like Chris Carter. And obviously Warren Moon. People wondered why he made the face he made. He grimaced when he unretired his number 1 and gave it to Cam Ward. I watched it last night. People slowed it down and you could see he bit his lip. He grimaced like he was either begrudgingly doing it or he was worried because he know how this going to work out. I'm going to go with he know how this going to work out. I don't think he did it begrudgingly. I think he wanted to do it. But I think he knows the situation that Cam Ward was facing and it's playing out right now. That's why he looked like that. So that tells you, that shows you he know what happened to Shedeur in the draft don't have shit about him being and acting like a cornerback. Because he saw everything else and decided to ignore that and not speak to that and not hold the NFL accountable. So what does that say about Warren Moon? Like Tiger Woods, he gave in? He couldn't fight it no more? That's what it says to me. Y'all know who Tiger Woods is dating? That's what happened. When you have the mentality, if you can't beat them, join them. That's what Warren Moon has done. That's what Tiger Woods has done. And that's why every time I see that video with Tiger Woods when he was a kid and they start pummeling on him when he said he could win. And they winning where he's concerned. They winning where Warren Moon is concerned. You might see Warren Moon more than you ever saw him. You never saw him because they didn't want him to talk about the racism. But he talked about it with Kyler Murray, but he didn't talk about it with Shedeur. Shedeur was in his exact same situation. So is Cam Ward. That's why he bit his lip when he hugged him and was no longer face to face with him. Let me know your thoughts. It says, so tired of the games. Yup. It says, release Shedeur so he can move on. Exactly. That's what I say. Release him. I tell you what, let him go. See, that's to me, that's why they drafted him. You knew you didn't want quarterbacks like Shedeur Sanders. Then why did you draft him? See, the NFL needs to be made accountable to answer that question. Why did you draft Shedeur if you didn't want him? To draft and destroy? Vince Young? That's why Warren Moon bit his lip. So they could try to break him down to a pocket passer And like they try to turn us, they turn Steve McNair into Ground McNair, Air McNair into Ground McNair. And then when he gets close to winning the Super Bowl, they ship him off to Baltimore. That's why Warren Moon bit his lip behind Cam Ward's back. Because he know what time it is. But he didn't know what time it is when it came to Shedeur. So now he want to ruin his impeccable reputation. To be accepted by who? That was a misstep for him. Because if anybody has wisdom to give to Shedeur, it's him. So Deshaun Watson gonna have to do it. I'll take it. I'll take it. Deshaun Watson is getting married today. Congratulations. So you see, Warren Moon didn't have the wisdom for Shedeur. Russell Wilson puts the wisdom out there, and I'm sure he let him know, don't let these people break you. But even though he survives it mentally, can he do anything about them destroying his career? No. He gonna need God for that. He gonna need that hard course correction to come through. Who knows what it's gonna look like? Angel Reese was only sharing time with one person, and she shouldn't have been. And now the other person is hurt. Caitlin Clark is hurt, and other people are getting the shine like they're supposed to. So that's what it's gonna take in the NFL. So God opened the door. We see that. But if we see God open the door for him to exit and he go to Canada, we going too. We are going to. Yep, I'm like you, Tina. Tired of the games. Tired of it. Hey, Gracie. I'm so pissed I don't know what to do. Yep. 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 That's why I don't have a favorite team. That's why I support the players. And I damn sure support Shadua. Been following him since Trinity Christian. So I'm definitely going. If he go to Canada, I'm finding me an organized t-shirt. I will happily burn every goddamn piece of NFL paraphernalia I have. Definitely not watching the next draft, not watching no games. I will go learn the sport of hockey. I will go learn NASCAR because guess what? They seem to be very welcoming, don't they? 3 black players drafted into the National Hockey League. I will go watch it. I will not waste my time on a league that has a problem with the majority of the starting quarterbacks being black, who's willing to do every damn thing imaginable and unimaginable, doing the unthinkable just to prevent that from happening, including sullying the league, watering down, diluting the competition, just making it about preference and not talent. And they persist. Well, damn it, you keep that. You keep it. I'm happy to watch Canadian football. So it's not just enough that the current players don't have any recourse because of the NFL Players Association alignment with the owners. It's sad that they don't get support from former players willing to call out the NFL when it's obvious. See if it wasn't obvious. I could see if they had to put on their thinking cap. It is obvious. It is obvious. So the NFL gonna have to suffer like hockey did. Once very, very popular, dwindling down to nothing, and now they got 3 black players drafted in hockey. I will watch it. I know 2 NASCAR drivers' names. Caruth and Scott. That's all I know. I heard it's 3. I know 2 players in the pit crew. One from the NFL and one is a woman. Both are black. I will watch NASCAR. Hell, I'm east of the Mississippi River, where we hear more about it. I didn't hear much about NASCAR in Texas, even though I know they got a motor speedway in Texas somewhere. In fact, in Atlanta this weekend, at some Georgia, Atlanta, or some motor speedway, 40,000 black people are expected to show up for a boots on the ground festival. How's that for being welcoming? Sure, come on in. You use our track. I would love to be there. I can tune out the NFL. I said it the other day. We could do without this. We don't need this. We are not going to support the NFL because they don't want the majority of the starting quarterbacks being black. And it's one thing to be prejudiced and just have a thought, but it's another thing to go through hell, bring hell to earth, to ruin people's careers and hurt them and damage them and humiliate them and lie on them to prevent that from happening. The story about Shedeur going to the Argonauts should be a reminder. He has options. Shiloh has options. Hopefully 39 other players that are holding out for their contracts have options. They value themselves enough to ask for fairness before they sign that. They're not going to get it afterwards. So don't be in such a hurry to get here. Lenore Seller's father should have took that $8 million and let his son stay. Either his son is going to be Cam and competing with the white quarterback that failed because that's who they want to see. Because I told you this is about optics. Or he going to be Milroe, labeled a damn project, and they going to bury him for 2 years. They're talking about it's going to be 2 years before Milroe gets a start. What? Because that's what they want to happen. And all Cleveland is doing is talking about need y'all to be fine and move on. And then we're going to get to know the Canadian Football League. Hopefully it has no association with the NFL. All right. Because they know he's the best QB. Yep, they know he's the best. I've been done with the NFL, only around for the Buffs. Right. Only around for the Buffs, but I'm going to have to make a departure from that too. Because I'm telling you, if they try to humiliate him again by cutting him, see, remember, Shedeur Sanders' phone number was sent out to 2,000 people with a waiver wire attached, which meant it was the joke that no matter where he goes, he's going to get cut. I've been done with the NFL since Kaepernick. Keep up with the NFL through word of mouth. I can see that, brother, because a lot of people have said that this is technically the same thing. They're blackballing Shedeur like they did Kaepernick. Warren Moon didn't speak on that. Thank you, Tina. I might be too close. So that's where we are. It looks like the conversation is starting to turn towards who's not going to be in Tampa and who's not going to be uh, a solution in Cleveland when it comes to the quarterback. Don't lie to yourself. Don't ignore it. Understanding we are on that straightaway to camp. Understand that these people have already decided what it is that they want to do. Now, they were supposed to cut somebody before as mandatory minicamp ended up, but they didn't. And I shared with you that they likely going to rotate the 4 quarterbacks they have and probably come up with a 5th to put Shedeur as far back from QB1 as possible. So that's what could happen. He could just remain on the roster and languish. I don't want to see that. I don't want to see that. I don't want to see his career go the way of Geno Smith. I don't even want him to have to endure what Russell Wilson had to endure. Sure, he can't let them, he's not letting them break him. But that's taking a toll on him to stay up mentally. He doesn't deserve any of that. He the best quarterback that came out in the draft, and they know it. He's not number 17 because he's the best. He's number 17 because they needed a narrative to take him down because he was the best. And that's where Coach Prime becomes the scapegoat. So don't go into this wide-eyed and bushy-tailed that he could compete and be the best. Is that how many of y'all believe that Shedeur is actually getting a fair opportunity to compete in Cleveland? That they truly want him to emerge as QB1. How many of y'all truly believe that? Not just Canadian football, but your own international league. Be out. Give the NFL some competition. Right. That's what I said. I think Blue Moon, that Coach Prime, in my opinion, what they doing to his children, and his players, I think this should be enough motivation for Coach Prime to start his own pro football league. If anybody can do it and give the NFL a run for his money, it's obviously Coach Prime, because that is exactly how Travis got his contract signed. They didn't care about him either. They was gonna let Travis languish with no sense of urgency, just like the rest of them in the first round and the rest of them in the second round. Oh, but we'll get to it in about 5 weeks. That's not how you treat people that you care about. They showed from the onset, we don't really care. You here now. What you gonna do? Walk away from it? That's the strategy. And 39 players are like, okay, well, if it has to come to that, that's what Shamar Stewart said. If it has to come to that. So people talking about Shedeur would have to go back to Colorado. What? He has options. And that's what the CFL provides. Options. They just started their season. Bubba Watson is NASCAR championship. Yep. I think Roger Caruth is the guy that said Roger Caruth is a current HBCU grad. I think Winston-Salem. And his daddy went to Clark. His mom went to Georgetown. He said that's what gave him the confidence to pursue. Bubba Watson gave him the confidence to pursue NASCAR. And he just won 2 or 3 races. And he's in the truck series. He's with Hendricks. See how much I know? And I haven't watched an entire race. Same thing with LeVar Scott. That's the other guy. He just signed with 45. That's another group. Let's see if Michael Jordan signs somebody. Because Michael Jordan has 23 racing. So yep, Bubba Watson gave him the uh the courage to pursue it, and here he is, a winner, right? LeVar Scott. There should be other guys that want to go that direction, because what people should be seeing at this point, there should be no conversation about Shedeur Sanders, and should he get a chance, that they would like to see him, the media would like to see him get a chance. That's not the conversation that should be happening. That means he deserves to be where he is if you want to see him get a chance. He's the absolute best quarterback that came out of the draft, the most NFL ready quarterback. And he's not even on the depth chart, which means, yes, they could release him, or they can keep him and let him play sporadically throughout the season. See, there are people who believe if he just go out there and ball out, that's going to help him. What? Y'all going to do something about it? Because that's who needs to change it. The fans have already seen that Shedeur is the best quarterback in the draft, and he not on the depth chart. And the misalignment between the front office, the friction between Berry and Stefanski is about Dylan Gabriel and Arch Manning. You don't see the writing on the wall? You really think Shedeur going out there and balling is going to save him? No, the fans going to have to show up, because the older players not going to do it, right? The NFL Players Association not going to do it. The guys that's already in the league, if their contracts ain't guaranteed, they can't do it. So it's up to the rookies, God and Shedeur, to push this thing forward. So yes, Shedeur has options. Yes, Cleveland are talking about Gabriel for Stefanski and Arch Manning, which means they're totally ignoring Shedeur. And yes, Deshaun Watson is teaching him how to survive it. RG3 too. So yes, the CFL is an option, and it might be a viable one. Let's see how the NFL, because this ain't just Cleveland. Let's see how the NFL plays it. So, you know, with everything that's happening, right? The moves that are being made, and you see, Cleveland still putting it out there that Shedeur is not their option. You see the story about Shedeur going to Cleveland as his next move if he gets cut, because it is possible. Why? Because he's not on the depth chart. Just like Shiloh's on the depth chart, but see, Tampa has already come out and given a heads up. Tampa's already said it's the uphill climb for Shiloh, but not because of his skill set. We just don't have enough space for him. Shedeur already not on the depth chart. There are already 4 quarterbacks on the depth chart. They would have to officially rule out Deshaun Watson, which they have not. They have not ruled out Deshaun Watson. Nobody expected Deshaun Watson to play another snap for Cleveland, healthy or injured. Because why? If he goes out here and balls out, then other people going to come for the kind of contract that he has. We just saw it happen with the recent collusion case, which involved Kyler Murray. So Cleveland has a decision to make. Do I rule out Deshaun and make room, which makes room for Shedeur, and then he becomes the 4th option? And do I dare let him take snaps outside of preseason games? That's the question they have to ask themselves. Because right now, Shedeur's not on the depth chart. He has to make the 53-man roster. They have to declare Deshaun Watson ineligible for the season. So let's see what they do now that Deshaun is taking Shedeur under his wing. The Browns are in a precarious situation. That's why you hear them talking about Arch Manning, Jordan C., and Dillon Gabriel. They're letting you know that he's not their future option. But what they going to do with him now? That's the question. Mia, no, it's not fair. I've always said it was going to take the fans and players to speak up because it's not right. Right. Max said, and it's true. See, here's the thing. The players, the ones with the guaranteed contracts, depending on what their clauses say, are the only ones that can probably, when the whistle blows, they don't come onto the field. But see, now they added this clause that says they can remove future guarantees because of on the field something. I'm like, what? And that's weird because the language was so vague. You don't really know what it means. Maybe they know what it means, and I don't. But the language was very vague. So that means you have guarantees. So basically, the NFL does not want to give them guaranteed contracts. So what they are giving them is if then. That's not a guarantee. Rain, slow, sleet, or hail is a guarantee. You get paid if you play, you get paid if you don't. The NFL don't want to do that. So the players themselves, once they sign that contract, it ain't no just turning back. Like Shedeur can get out of his contract, but it's going to take some legal action. You saw what happened with Kaepernick. It was only one or two Kaepernick and one or two other guys that deal well with the rest of them. They weren't willing to risk it. You think they're willing to risk it if they sign their contract in 2025? No. Hell, they got more clauses in place. If you do this, if you do that. Voiding future guarantees. Why would you even sign up for somebody to void your future guarantees? That's essentially what they did to Michael Vick. They went back and took his signing bonus 5 or 6 years after he started. So what you're saying is the money is always on the table to be snatched away. Why would you sign up for that? And then you have 39 rookies who have not signed up. First round, second round, I think maybe one in the third. Because they see certain guys getting guarantees, but they're not getting these fully guaranteed contracts. So they're like, I'm not signing up for this. in their rights. Because that means you're going to be on the field with people whose salary is protected and yours is not. And how do theirs get protected and mine don't? The first round is supposed to be fully guaranteed anyway. So that means they got some other issues happening. The second round is not. So they pushing for guarantees. I think it's going to have to be Flacco to lead to secure a spot. It's going to have to be Flacco. I don't think they're going to let Flacco lead. I know people said that Indianapolis needs a quarterback. I don't know if that situation has been remedied. We can take a look at it later. Because I do want to update the chart that we have with the teams by division and look at who's where because people are moving around. And then we haven't done one since the draft. Flacco leaving also creates a space, and that's keeping Deshaun and Shedeur. But now that Shedeur is being taken under Deshaun's wing, I don't see both of them being active. But we're going to see. I wish everybody would boycott the NFL at the beginning of the season. Yep, that's a wish, but they ain't going to do it. Because if you notice, do you see certain other players speaking out? No. I don't know. I'm not sure. Somebody said it's an echo. Let's see. I'm not sure. Oh, I think I know what it is. I think the camera might have picked up. The camera can record. Let me know if you still hear it. Let me know. Flacco or Deshaun. Mac, yeah. Okay, Flacco or Deshaun. Yeah, I agree. Flacco or Deshaun. So somebody would have to depart. They clearly don't want to trade Dillion. They clearly see if you look at the play that's happening, the conversation, Pickett is probably the starter. There's guys that have gone on Shannon Sharp's show and said that they heard that too. So that came out first. That's the internal conversation that's happening. But then now it's made its way to the media, and that's what they're parroting, which means Pickett is going to start, Flacco could close, and Dillion is going to be like DTR. They let him take snaps in the game uh, to relieve Pickett and to relieve Flacco. Because that's what DTR's role was. He only started 3 games. I can see Dillion being that guy. If Shedeur wasn't on the roster, that's exactly, I could tell you comfortably that that's what they're going to do. But with Shedeur on the roster, they could do what they did in 2023. Rotate 3 quarterbacks through the first leg of the schedule between 11 games. Rotate 3 quarterbacks to 7-4 record. That's what they ended up with. And Deshaun Watson was a part of that. Now they paid Deshaun Watson all that money, right? But then they made him rotate with DTR and PJ Walker. And PJ Walker is a quarterback who was a quarterback for Cleveland in 2023. He's also in Canada. You might start seeing more of that as the NFL is manipulating who the quarterbacks are going to be. Y'all have talked about players who are quarterbacks at other schools like Oregon and Arkansas. You don't even hear their names. If they're not even in the top 20 and they're not drafting 20 quarterbacks, then where they going to make it at? You see, they already need options. To me, that's why these players right now need to get together and start their own league and take guidance from Coach Prime if he don't want to start his own league. But he should. Thank you, Mac. It said those unsigned players should go to Canada or the UFL. Well, the UFL is not an option because why? The NFL is using the UFL like the G League. They just called up several players from the UFL, so they're going to end up in the same situation. The only option these guys have is to start their own league. They are being backed into a corner. The old heads not helping with their rhetoric. The quarterbacks and the rest of the players are all different. They have different priorities. Pink substance got to pass, right? But all they want to talk about is speeding tickets because the quarterbacks have a harder road to go. Those guys can't boycott. I mean, they can. If they're tired of playing and they want to call it quits, they can. They need to start their own league. That's the option. It worked for basketball. Player led. Start your own league rather than wait for somebody else to start another one. There's already the UFL that the NFL has gotten its clutches into. Next is going to be Canada. That's why I said I didn't know the NFL had a Canadian page. That just popped up on my radar. I wasn't looking for it. Didn't even think to look for it before they get their hands onto that, and then you have nowhere to go. Start your own league. This is what being backed into a corner and somebody telling you, so what you gonna do about it? That's what this looks like. People do what you allow. And at this point, they're allowing it. If the rookies can put their collective together and try to force change, whether they're gonna be successful or not, at least they tried. Thank you, Echo. It said, so I'm okay with 12 not starting, but let him get some snaps. I'm not okay with 12 sitting on the bench because he's the best quarterback coming out the draft. See, I'm not okay with that. I'm not okay with that because that's wrong. That's like it's wrong to say he should at least get a chance. All you saying is he deserves to be where he is. But it might be safer for him not to play. And that's wrong too. I'd rather him go to Canada where it's safer for him to play. Where they're not worried about black quarterbacks taking over. Like, this is ridiculous. Some people just want to play football. Max said Canada and the UFL. Nobody will watch the NFL if all black star players leave. And see, that's another thing, right? They want the league to be white at the quarterback position. They okay with it being majority black at all other, because I told you they look at them as bodies, right? But the quarterbacks, that's what a fight is. That's what a fight is. That's what a disrespect is. And it's been happening for 9 decades. That's why you have to start your own league. That is what you're being backed into a corner to do. And what you're going to have to do, since the wide receivers, the tight ends, or whatever, the ones that's not ready to walk away from the NFL because they are in the midst of a 3 or 4 year contract. Remember those guys that they just cut who were in the league for 1 and 2 years? Damar Hamlin, they gave him a 1 year contract. He didn't even win. What was it? Comeback player of the year. They gave it to Flacco or something like that. I know he would want to play. You need people like that. D Hopkins has a 1 year contract. Get him. Because it's the quarterbacks they icing out. The black quarterbacks are being iced out. They rotating through labor, in my opinion, every 3 to 4 years. And these guys can still play. Go get the Damar Hamlins. Go get D Hop because they probably 1 year, that's it. That's where you start. Get the Shedeurs. Look at all the other black quarterbacks that didn't get in. Look at the HBCU quarterbacks that's balling out that the league is not going to look at. It tells you that the league believes that the quarterback position is a thinking man's role. Why else am I icing out black quarterbacks like I used to do? Why am I going back to that? Because of the climate that we live in. And it makes it okay because nobody's going to hold them accountable. Shedeur has to play the hand he's been dealt. His head is in the lion's mouth and he has to ease out of it. Yep, he got to stay there, make sure they don't break him. That's what Shedeur being closer to his spirituality is about. Surviving this. That's where Deshaun Watson comes in, because it's one thing to have Russ in New York, to have RG3 who's out the league, but to have Deshaun Watson on the same team, that's a godsend. That's a godsend because it's going to help him survive this, because he's going to learn what did I say he needs to learn. That this is not about your father. That's lesson number 1. So we're going to get out of here. This was good. Don't look at this situation hoping and praying that they give him a chance. It's wrong that he doesn't have one. Don't be upset if God decide to swing that door open and he go to Canada, him and Shiloh. Okay. And it still ain't about Coach Prime, because that's probably the play. Um, and if he makes it onto the team, we have to see how they're gonna play that between Deshaun and Shedeur being on the same squad. See, at first they thought that's what they wanted. At first, doing the whole pre-draft process with them coming out of school last year at Colorado, that's what the league thought they wanted. But now, after it's all said and done, and what has happened to Shedeur is an attack, technically, is also what happened to Deshaun in attack. And that's becoming more apparent every day with not just Shedeur's situation, but the collusion cases with the black quarterbacks, learning about Kyler Murray and how he was denied his guarantee. He got the same amount of money as Deshaun, but not the guarantee. But they put a stipulation in his contract that he has to study. You don't hear about these things, these attacks happening on other players at all. Not white quarterbacks and not any other player that's not a quarterback. This is about black NFL quarterbacks. Why? Once because they're on the rise again, and NFL seems to be working really hard to stop that. And Shedeur Sanders is a part of that. So is Cam, and so is Miro. Look at their situations too. So we'll be back later on. And we'll be back, and we have another topic to talk about. Actually, there's a conversation happening on social media, and it's about Georgia. And I'll tell y'all what the conversation is. I don't know if I want to talk about it or not. I'm just happy the conversation's happening, but it is a good conversation. They're talking about why is it that the University of Georgia rarely has black quarterbacks. And then when they do, what happens to them? Justin Fields, how he had to leave. They talked about another guy, I guess back in the day, how they basically let him do what Teddy Bridgewater did in Detroit. Bring the lead up, get the game under control, and secure the lead and turn it over to the white quarterback. That's exactly what happened in 2023 with the Cleveland Browns. So the Browns know exactly what they're doing. In 2023, they rotated 3 black quarterbacks through 7-4. They handed over a winning record to Joe Flacco. That's why I told y'all Joe Flacco is going to be the closer. They're going to let the other guys rotate, primarily Flacco and Gabriel, and they're going to let Shedeur play like PJ Walker. Where's PJ Walker? In Canada. All right, so we'll talk later. We'll see what topics come up next. This was good. I need people to not be wide-eyed and bushy-tailed. You need to understand the play that's happening. You need to understand that Shedeur has options and he might have to exercise them. And know that they don't have him in a corner like they think they do, and that Deshaun Watson is a saving grace for Shedeur Sanders to impart wisdom on how to survive an attack as an NFL black quarterback by the NFL and the team that you're on. All right, talk to y'all later. See y'all, I guess, this afternoon. Just turn your notifications on. Thanks for watching What She Said Sports. Thank you. Thank you for watching What She Said Sports. Be sure to join our daily live stream and listen up to What She Said Sports on the go on Spotify. Thank you for watching What She Said Sports. Stay for another video. Thank you for watching What She Said Sports. Be sure